I've helped many, many, many children, thousands of children all over the world. Cancer kids, leukemia kids.
He's a
humanitarian.
Humanitarian, the real Michael Jackson.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here. So
well, I hope you had your coffee and you're ready to go.
I've had my honey and lemon drink. That's my morning
All
thing.
right.
Now, so we've been chatting for a little while, and I wanted to chat to you mainly about the humanitarian side of Michael. It's something that that I've written a book about, and I know you've got the book, and I know that it's something that you've wanted to talk about as well.
Right, yeah.
Of course, when people talk about Michael Jackson, there's a million different things they can talk about.
Right,
But
yeah.
one thing that is not often spoken about is the humanitarian side and all the good things that happened at Neverland, that I thought, well, who's going to have a better story than the guy that helped run Neverland, Big Al? You were there for what, 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah.
So you must have seen a lot of good charitable work, and tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, when I look back on it, I mean, I know all the fans out there have got to, think how exciting it was to work for Mr. Jackson, and it was. I was never. I think part of the reason I survived as long as I did out there is I was never a starstruck person. I don't think I was. Yeah. And I mean, it was. I know when I made my deal, up until the time I made my deal, I wasn't really that excited. I mean, it was a beautiful place, and I'd been out there several times over the previous 2 years as a consultant when they were putting the amusement park together, and I just thought it was very first class, and I thought it would be cool to work for Mr. Jackson, but it wasn't. But when I look back on it now, the added bonus was not only just working for him, but the stuff he did out there that at the time people still don't know actually the magnitude of what all went on there as far as the humanitarian work. They just don't know. And to be one of the key figures in those events, because I mean, everything that I took care of was all the fun stuff. So that's where we spent most of the time. Most of the event was revolved around either the trains or the amusement park. I mean, we went to the zoo and went to the movie theater, but the people that worked in the amusement park were involved in the whole day from start to finish. And so when I look back on it, that was really rewarding, because I got to see, how it impacted people's lives, especially the kids from Children's Hospital, because we would get letters from the parents and from the siblings and from the nurses and doctors describing just how unbelievable, it was the biggest thing that ever happened to these, not just the kid that was ill, that was fighting a terminal disease, but the siblings and the parents, because a lot of these kids didn't survive much longer. And it was that memory of that day was something that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And it's a very positive thing, even though they lost a young child at a young age. They got to come out there and spend the day, and it was a huge impact on their lives. And I'm sure, had a very permanent effect on them. So.
And on you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I would start reading, the ranch manager would share these letters. I actually made copies of all of them and kept them in a 3-ring binder, and it just bring tears to your eyes. Actually, I had a family, a kid actually from Australia. It was a cancer wing from Australia, and the kid had lost his leg to cancer. I don't remember how old he was, but he was, I don't know, 10, 12, 13, I don't know. And whenever somebody shows a strong interest in the steam train, I offer them a ride, a cab, what we call a cab ride, where you ride up front, not necessarily in the engine, but there's a bench seat right behind it that's in front of what we call the tender, where the water and the propane and the sound system. And you're almost sitting in the engine. I don't like them to sit too close, because it's a live steam train. And there's a lot of hot stuff up there and everything. So I'll usually let them, blow the whistle and pull on the throttle to get it started. And then I have them sit down. And anyway, this kid was asking questions about it. And so I took him up to the front. I had him help him up because, like I said, he was missing a leg from about the middle of the thigh down, and he was on crutches. And it was a huge deal for him. And then I do these certificates that were numbered, and had Neverland Railroad honorary engineer and the person's name. And anyway, his family stayed in touch with me for years and years and years. Even he passed away a couple of years later. He didn't, but they stayed in touch with me personally for years and years and years. And that kind of stuff just, I mean, it makes you feel like, what you were doing was, if they could have fed me every meal, I probably would have worked out there for free, because to get to feel feelings like that, what a big impact to be. I don't want to say represent Michael, but you're kind of a representative for him when people come out there and spend the day out there. And so to get to be him by proxy, sort of, just to help these events go the way he wants them to go was very rewarding.
Did it take long? So you started working there in 1990. Did it take long for you to realize that was the purpose of Neverland? That's what was happening there, and the underprivileged children and families that were coming out?
Oh yeah, I would say within a few months I understood, because he wasn't there very much. He was actually, I think it was the Dangerous Tour, or getting ready for the Dangerous Tour.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I'm not good with dates and all that, but he wasn't there that much. But yet we had events all the time with and at the time I went in there, like I said, I'd been going in there as a consultant for a couple of years, inspecting the rides. But you just didn't. I mean, the media didn't know all this stuff, and there's a reason for that, which I found out through the years of working for him, is that's not why he was doing it.
Yeah,
he wasn't doing it for public relations. He was doing it out of the kindness of his heart. And I will, to my dying day, I will absolutely stand up for that fact. That's an absolute fact that he did that, because he wanted to help people forget about their problems and have a day that they'll never forget.
And so you said Michael wasn't there a lot. At a guess, were these families and charity groups at Neverland more often than Michael?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh, definitely, yeah. On the Central Coast, the weather is pretty nice all year round. But in the wintertime, we do get some rain, and sometimes heavy, and sometimes for several days. So we wouldn't schedule as many events in the wintertime, because Mr. Jackson didn't want these kids to look forward. They'd find out about this trip a few months ahead of time, and to look forward to this, and then have it canceled. So, but in the summertime, we would do at least 2 a week, sometimes 3 a week.
Wow.
And we're talking, anywhere from 100 to 200 guests each time. So it was, the ranch was definitely enjoyed many times over, more by guests than it was by Michael. I mean, I have no doubt that he enjoyed it when he was there.
Yeah.
To get away from the tour and the music and in the studio and all the work, and especially after he had kids. But it was really enjoyed by other people more than it was him.
And I can only imagine, I presume, there was small groups of families and friends coming through, but I can only imagine there'd be large groups as well of different, from what I've read in my research for my book. There was 100, more than 100 people with the groups, their families, their friends, their helpers, their carers.
Yeah, usually, we kind of classified it in events, or in private guests, or Mr. Jackson being home. And the private guests, it was usually, a family, or maybe a couple of families. It wasn't, anywhere from 2 to 10 or 15 people. That was what usually was private guests. The events, it was usually somewhere between 100 and 200. We did a couple, we did that big charity event. I call it the golden ticket event. I don't know what it was officially called, but we had probably 2,000 people there for that event. It was actually a little overwhelming for us, because it really was, there was a lot of employees there, 100 employees. And when you think somebody's house, 100 employees, it should be no problem. But when you're talking 2,700 acres and a zoo and an amusement park and a movie theater and most everybody goes home, you know, at 3:30 and that most of the employees go home at 3:30 in the afternoon. So large events were like that were, you know, pretty labor intensive. Matter of fact, I had a pretty long list of volunteer friends, some firefighters from Santa Maria and some people from Knott's Berry Farm and some friends from LA, and they would come up on these big events and help. But yeah, when Michael was there, it was usually, you know, just him and maybe some his family or some friends. It was kind of small, low key.
Did you stay in contact with any of the other staff members? Are you friends with any of them?
Yeah, I talked to a few of them occasionally on the phone and a few of them through email. And actually, we've had, I'd say, I don't know how many months ago, it's probably about 6 months ago, a few people were talking about maybe having some kind of reunion thing. So who knows?
That would be cool. Have you been there since you left working there?
Yeah, I can't talk a whole lot about it because I can't. But yeah, I have been there, and actually, I was pretty excited. There was quite a few people that came back to work there for the new owner.
It must be hard. I wanted to ask you, and I know it's probably going to be a hard question to answer. If there was, you know, so many families and groups going through Neverland all the time, if there's any that stand out in your mind, when I ask you, what, you know, about the groups and the kids and the families, and I'm going to say families because there's a misconception that it was all kids going to Neverland, and
Right.
And you can confirm or deny that it wasn't just kids, it was families, their parents, their cousins, their carers. A lot of these kids, the orphans had carers, and the groups, people that ran these groups, all those people as well.
Right. I got to tell you, this doesn't exactly go along with that question, but it'll lead into maybe another answer or two. When you talk about it's all kids, we did an event for a bunch of people at Sony that were, you know, the behind the scenes people, the people that help market stuff, the people that answered the phones and you know, just reception. I mean, it was just a bunch of the workers at Sony Records or something at Sony. And I think it was after the history album. I'm not sure, but anyway, it was all adults, and they kept apologizing because they were having so much fun and they were laughing all the time. And they kept apologizing for acting like little kids and being so goofy. And I explained to them, I said, well, that's really kind of points out the fact that we're doing a good job here, because that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to forget about the outside world and be a kid again, because that's I mean, you look back when you're old like me, you look back on your life. That was the best times, you know, and you might not have known it at the time. So, but anyway, probably one of the groups that really sticks out in my mind, I think it was in your book about the one kid, but anyway, was a Burn Foundation. I think it was called the Alicia Ann Roosh Burn Foundation. And they only brought about, I don't know, 30 kids and probably about maybe 10 medical staff or adult chaperones. And I was talking to one of the nurses, and they were telling me that how amazing this place was and how the staff adapted so quickly. And I guess I should have explained before that, these kids, I've seen burn victims, but I've never seen burn victims that had scars like some of these. I mean, it was like something out of an alien movie. I mean, it was, and this nurse explained to me that these kids would get invited to go to Disney and Knott's Berry Farm and Universal and all that, and they couldn't even make it through the whole day because everybody was staring at them because of their looks. And I'm sure that everybody, including me at Neverland, was pretty shocked by it, but we understood what our deal was. I mean, what we were supposed to be doing there. And, you know, and having a small group, and like in our zoo, we bring out the chimps, we bring out the orangutans, and these kids get to, you know, interact with them. And anyway, the nurse was just, you know, explaining to me what a big deal it is. And that, I think that's probably one of the events that really sticks out in my mind for, you know, what a huge impact it had on me personally, just
Yeah.
to know how tough it is for them and what a big day it was for them.
Yeah, 100%. Did you ever take off the worker's hat and go and have fun and spend some time on the
You
ride?
know, I didn't, you know, earlier I was talking about I had volunteers that would come up and help me. Well, once a year we would do a party for all these volunteers, because some of these guys would drive up from LA on their own dime. I mean, put gas in their own vehicle, stay in a hotel. I mean, it was, you know, and I greatly appreciated it, you know, and so once a year we would do an event for them. And then also once a year we did an event for all of the MJJ Productions staff and all the Neverland staff. But the thing is that when you work in the amusement park and it's an event, you have to work. So me, along with my entire family and all my friends, were running rides all day on family day. But again, it was kind of like having one of the events for the kids from the inner city or the hospital. I got to see all these people that really greatly helped me out, and all my coworkers and their families have fun. So for me, you know, I've been around amusement rides right since I've been working on amusement rides since 17 years old. So
Yeah.
I don't need to go ride any rides. I had fun just making sure everybody else was having fun. So.
And so you mentioned Employee Family Day. What's that about?
Well, it was like one of our events for the inner city kids or the kids in the hospital, but it was just for the employees.
Oh yeah.
And they got to bring their families. And again, a lot of the employees, like the chefs and the zoo people, I mean, they all had to work. The zoo basically, the way we kind of had a schedule, and the way it worked is the zoo was basically done by 2 o'clock, so they could take the rest of the day off. And but the event was to thank all the employees, you know, and let them bring their families out to enjoy Neverland. So it was a pretty important day for everybody that worked there. And usually the MJJ production staff in LA, which wasn't a big staff, but they would come up also. And then I think we invited some of the guys from Rocket Cargo, that's a company that transported his equipment on the tours all over there. They're based out of LA. You know, a couple of people that were, you know, directly involved in all the tours and stuff. So it's kind of a Michael Jackson employee family day at Neverland.
That must be great for the employee morale.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have to
work in a place like this and go home and tell your family about it and not ever get to show you work for Michael Jackson and we can't even come out there, you know? So sorry. Well, it was a pretty good day.
That's cool. Did you ever have to work off-site? I know Brad Sundberg got shipped over here and over there, and
yeah.
was working off-site a lot. Did you only stay at Neverland, or did you work off-site as well?
No, I pretty much. I mean, there was a couple of things I went on and did a little bit of stuff, like when I went to the 30th anniversary. But basically, my job was Neverland, take care of the amusement rides. So that's pretty much all. That's all I did. I mean, I snuck Michael off over to Lompoc a couple of times on 4th of July to see fireworks, and so those.
Where?
Lompoc, it's a town. I guess the correct pronunciation is Lompoc, but anyway, it's a town about 30 miles from going straight towards the ocean from Neverland, and they do a big fireworks show there. And Michael really liked fireworks, and he wanted us to get fireworks to shoot off at the ranch. But when you're in the middle of 2,700 acres of nothing but sycamore trees and oak trees, and in the summertime everything's dry and brown and serious fire hazard, we would have all went to jail for that. And not to mention the fact that it was fairly dangerous, even though we had our own fire department. So the fire captain in Lompoc was friends with the fire captains at Neverland Fire Department, and they arranged for us to sneak him in the back door. And there was only 2 people that knew we were coming. There was the fire captain and the sheriff that was guarding the back gate. And of course, once we got there, you know, the rest of the fire guys, you know, figured out who it was. And but yeah, that was quite an experience. I did that a couple of times. That was an experience. So.
Wow, that's amazing. And you've spoken about having chats with Michael, you know, just the 2 of you. Did he ever talk about his humanitarian work and what he wanted to do to you?
Well, not really, but I did, this was, I think I've been asked before about some of my favorite moments, with just me and Mr. Jackson, and this is probably one of them. He was on property, but there was no guests yet. I think they weren't coming in until the next day. So I really didn't have, I had to make sure everything was ready, and I'd take the trains for a ride every once in a while, but I knew he wasn't going to come down and ride rides by himself, but he did come down to the park. I was actually in my office, which is behind the Sea Dragon ride, and I didn't even hear him drive up, and he comes in, and this is when we had the Jumbotron. The Jumbotron was at the ranch, and I was told to play Peter Pan on the animation version of Peter Pan all the time. So anyway, he comes in, and I don't think he'd ever been in there before, because part of this building had my office, and then part of it had all the hydraulic system that ran the Sea Dragon. It was, for somebody who'd never seen it before, it was kind of intimidating. It was a big giant hydraulic tank and a big giant motor and all hoses and solenoids and everything. And I could tell somebody came in, and I turn around, and he's staring at all this equipment. And he asked me, he goes, "What is all this stuff?" And I remember explaining it to him. I didn't really want to go into a lot of detail, but I said, this is the hydraulic tank. And anyway, and I tell people, I said, if he was alive today and we went in there, he could tell you everything I told him. When he asks you a question, you can just tell. When you talk to people, are they somewhere else, or are they, do they just ask that to be polite? Do they really care? And I was explaining this stuff to him, and he was looking at me, and he was taking it all in. But anyway, that's a long entry into the story about us talking. He goes, "Do we have anything else that we can play on the Jumbotron?" So I took him back to the closet, and this was before DVDs, but we had laser discs, and we had some VHS tapes and some tapes. I think it's called 3/4 inches, like what the news people use. Anyway,
Well, the quality must have been amazing.
Anyway, he's looking and looking and looking and looking. I had 100 different movies in there, which I didn't understand because I was told to play Peter Pan only. But anyway, so he goes, "Oh, can we put this in?" So it was a laser disc, so I put it in, and it was the movie Hook.
Oh yeah.
Which is basically the Peter Pan story with live actors.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we walk outside, and I'm not sure what the plan is, but he sits down underneath this huge oak tree that's about 50 feet in front of the Jumbotron, and he's watching the movie, and he tells me, he goes, "Sit down, let's talk." And I'm like, okay. So the movie started, and we're watching the movie, and he's, we get a little ways into it, and then he just starts talking to me. But we talked about Neverland. Most of the time that we were talking about Neverland. And I wish I would have been able to record the whole thing with a camera, especially because you could see it in his eyes and hear it in his voice of what Neverland was all about. He really built that place to do those events. It wasn't so much a secluded place for him to live. That was a bonus, but he really built that place, and it was a big investment. When you start buying amusement rides and bringing in zoo, exotic animals and stuff, it's a big investment. 100 employees and whatnot, and it was, I'm telling you, it was 99% built for doing those events with the kids in the hospital, the inner city kids, and so yeah, it was a pretty awesome. We sat there and watched the whole movie, but we talked a lot about Neverland, and it was a big moment for me to be able to just sit there and talk like two guys talking, underneath a big old shade tree. And so we had a school across the street. They had about 3,000 acres. It was a huge ranch too. It was a private high school. I think it had 60 students. And this thing was it cost as much to go to that school as it did to go to a university.
Yeah.
And when we'd get the guest list, you'd read down the guest list, and you'd see names of, they're A-lister names that you knew from Hollywood or whatever. So, but anyway, we had Michael wanted them to come over because they were neighbors. So Michael wanted them to come over to the ranch once in a while, and us to do a short, he understands they're in school and they have a strict guideline on what they can do, but he wanted us to do something for them, a couple times a month or whatever. So we worked out a deal with the headmaster that they'd come over just for a couple hours in the evening, and they'd split it up into two groups. Well, one time Michael, well, actually a few times Michael was there with them. And this particular one, the story I want to tell is we started out in the arcade, and then we took the steam train down to the amusement park. We were in the arcade for about a half hour. Then we went down the amusement park for about a half hour. And then we were going to go in the movie theater and watch Ghost. Because at that time, and still today, there's not Ghost wasn't widely released. So it was one place that you could see it. And of course, seeing it on that big screen in Michael's theater with that big sound system, it was quite an experience. So we get them all in the theater, and then after that, I'm going to take them all on the steam train back down to the house, and then they walked from there all the way back across the street, which is about a mile walk, but they walked back to school. So before Ghost start, I always would get up and I would talk a little bit about the first time you see Michael in this, you're not going to recognize him. I said he plays 5 parts. And I tell him, Michael and Stephen King wrote the story, and Stan Winston, who's one of the biggest, special effects guy, or gore special effects, like horror special effects guys in Hollywood. So I tell him a little bit about it, and then I would tell him, when the video's over, stay and watch all the way through the credits, because it shows Michael getting made up into all the different characters. Yeah. So then I give the projectionist the thumbs up, and he starts starts the video, and I'm out front in the snack bar stealing a Dr. Pepper and a candy bar, I think. And Michael comes out. He didn't say anything about me taking a soda and a candy bar, so that was. But he goes, Big Al, he says, when the credits start, and I'm already thinking, hey, I already gave him instructions, but I let him finish. He goes, when the credits start, there's a girl in there who it's her birthday. And I want you to bring her in the dance studio. I said, okay. Now, I don't know who it is, but I know where the headmaster's sitting. He's sitting right by the door towards the back. So I'm just going to go get him and ask him who it is. And I'm sure you've seen pictures of the dance studio. I wish I had one I could put up here, but I don't. I'm sure I do. But anyway, it's about, got to be 40 foot long. Well, all the way at the far end, there was an old fashioned rocking chair, and it was kind of dimly lit. There was a lit light in the middle where he had the rivet heads for when he did the lean, and he practiced right in there. So it was kind of, there was a light, it was kind of lit up there, but down the back, it was kind of in the shadows. Yeah. So I go to the headmaster and I ask him whose birthday it is. And he points out the girl to me. And so I go over and tap her on the shoulder, and I said, you need to come with me, or somebody wants to talk to you. And she's looking at me like, who the heck are you? Who the heck wants to talk to me? I think she was a little nervous at first about it, but anyway, I convinced her, and we go out in the front lobby, and she's looking around. I go, that's over here. So I go over to the doorway to the dance studio, and I open it, and I said, he's sitting down there in that chair. And she's still a little nervous looking at me, because it doesn't even look like anybody's sitting in it. I know he's down there, and I have no idea what he's going to do. So she starts walking down there, and I thought, I really should just go away and mind my own business, but I got to know what's going to happen here. Yeah. And Michael, being the perfect performer he is, knows exactly what's going on around him all the time. As soon as she walked up, he kind of rolled out of the chair and took her hand and sang happy birthday to her. Oh, wow. And it just about, I almost lost it. I mean, it was just, for one thing, it was a cool act of kindness for him to do. And the other thing was for me to be standing there and listen to Michael Jackson sing a cappella about 40 feet in front of me. I was pretty excited about that. Yeah. But she was like, she was all excited and hysterical and everything. And like I said, months later, when I was thinking about that and telling somebody about it, I was like, that to me, that kind of tells me a little bit about how he thinks about things that he does. If he was a lot of entertainers that would have thought that was a cool thing to do, he would have went in there in front of all those kids and done it in the theater. Yeah. He wanted that to be a special moment for her. He did that absolutely for her. Yeah. He doesn't know it. well, I guess he probably did. I'm sure he saw me stand there. He did it for me too, but he really, well, I mean, I got to, I got the benefit of being a bystander, but he really did that for her. And I mean, that just, to me, that says a lot about how he thinks about that. I mean, it's not all about, obviously, with all the stuff we did at Neverland, it's not all about the publicity. This is another thing that kind of tells me how he genuinely cares about people around him. Now, he had not been at the ranch in, I don't know, 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, the last time he was at the ranch, this will kind of give away a little bit about where the story's going, but I had slipped going down this dirt embankment up by the steam train, and I don't know what I did to my knee, but I had to have arthroscopic surgery, and I was on crutches, and he was there and saw me on crutches, asked me what happened. I told him, blah, blah, blah. So now 6 months later, we're having some friends of Michael's on property. And late at night, I don't know, probably about 9 o'clock, I get a call. I got some of the kids in the amusement park riding rides. And I get a phone call from security. Do you have the guests with you? And I said, yes. And they said, can you take them to a phone? They have a phone call. Well, I knew that had to be Michael because he checks on people after they've been there for a while. And he was in New York actually working in the studio. And so I take him over to the theater because it's warm. It's kind of a cold night. So I take him over to the movie theater and I have him transfer it to there. And the security said, when you're done, transfer it to the house because the other guests want to talk to him. Okay. So I told the kids, I said, no, don't hang up. I need to transfer the call. So I go outside and I'm on the golf cart. And I mean, they talked for like an hour. And it's, now it's 10 o'clock there. So it's got to be, midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning in New York, which doesn't mean anything because Michael, I'm sure, was probably just taking a break from working in the studio. But
Yeah.
Anyway, all of a sudden they come running out of the movie theater. And I said, is he still on the phone? No, he said, but he'd call back. I said, okay. So I told security, I said, well, he's going to call back. So the kids go away. And about an hour later, I'm done shutting the steam train down. And I'm at the depot. I didn't park it in the barn because the guests were going to stay overnight. So I knew it had to be there in the morning. Anyway, so security calls and they go, are you by a phone? I go tell them what the extension I was at. And I called, or the phone rang and I picked up and said, hello. And it was Michael. And he goes, he asked me, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes, we're just kind of casual talk. I'm in New York, working on this, doing this, doing that. Blah, blah. And I'm thinking, this is weird. I mean, I'm glad he's talking to me about this, but I really didn't understand where this was going. He goes, hey, how's your knee? And I'm like, I'm looking down at my knee. I'm like, my knee? And he goes, he remembered more about my knee than I did because I'm like, I had no idea what he's talking about. And he goes, well, last time I saw you were on crutches. How's your knee? I got surgery. And I go, and I thought for a minute, I go, that's just too cool. That he not only did he remember, but he asked me about it. So anyway, so then he goes, well, so you wanted to talk to me? And I'm going, again, I was confused. I'm like, I go, oh, I said, no, I said, actually, I was supposed to transfer the call to the house because the other guests wanted to talk to you. He goes, oh, okay. And then we just started talking more about, him working in the studio and this and that, and about whatever, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And now it's like, it's got to be, it's, I don't know. We talked for like 30 minutes or so. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. I'm going to be back home before too long. I'll see you then. Okay. I thought, man. Then of course, when I hung up, I thought, well, that was cool. He thought I wanted to talk to him about something. He was, return my call. I said, thinking if I was Michael Jackson, I wouldn't be returning that guy's call. I'm busy working in the studio in New York. But so
you really had a sense that he cared and valued you.
Oh yeah.
And did the other staff members, do you think that felt valued and felt cared about?
I never heard anybody share any stories, but I have no doubt that he did. I mean, you would see him like, you know, a guy would be working. Michael was very adamant about, he wanted the grounds to look very nice, a lot of flowers. And we had an incredible ground staff. I mean, it was 3 different, I think it was there irrigation, trees, flowers, and yards. There's 4 departments that made up the grounds. And they all did just unbelievable. When you think about the massive, I mean, they didn't have to take care of the whole ranch, but behind the house property behind me, between that and the amusement park, it was 40 or 50 acres of yards and flower beds and what. So it was a lot of work, and they did an incredible job. Yeah. And I know that, I mean, they came in at 7:30 in the morning and went home or 7 in the morning and went home at 3:30 in the afternoon. And they really didn't interact with the guests or Mr. Jackson. But when he was around, if he was around and wasn't necessarily with any guests, but if he was there, you know, a day before, or a day after, or just walking around and saw somebody working, he would go up and talk to him.
Yeah.
And he would thank them, and he would tell them what a great job they're doing. I mean, he truly, and it's funny because one of our firefighters, we got a new piece of firefighting apparatus. It's what they call a quick attack truck. It's kind of a small, it's like a 2-ton pickup with a big utility bed, and it's got a water tank and a fire hose. And anyway, we got one of those, and this particular firefighter was saying, you know, I don't think Michael even knows we got a new fire truck. Now I can, where we're standing down by the security office, down by the house, and he's in front of me facing the security office, and I'm right by the door of the security office facing out, and the truck is parked over about 100 feet from us, and I can see Michael walking over to it. And he actually opens the door and gets in it, and I can tell he's like fiddling with the buttons and stuff. And I go, man, are you going to be sorry when you turn around?
Unreal.
So anyway, yeah, he was very appreciative of the people, and I got to, when we put the jumbotron at Neverland, I got to know a lot of the people that were a part of the tour, and the same guys came back. I mean, they loved working for him, and the same guys came back all the time, and they would tell me that he was really good about making sure that every single person knew how important they were and what a big part of, you know, making that tour happen, and how thankful he was. And he was, so that was nice to hear. I mean, he was good about that. I'm at the ranch recently doing an inspection. I'm checking the railroad track because hasn't been attended to for ever since Michael passed away, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I'm walking now, it's 2 miles of track. So it takes well over an hour to walk the whole track. So I'm all the way at the back, and it's late enough in the evening. I don't think there was too many employees still on property. And I get back there, and the train is hooked up, and the lights are on, the rope lighting is on, and it's hooked up to a battery charger. And they told me that earlier in the day, the electricians were down there working on the lights. And anyway, so I go down there, I'm walking around the train, and I'm doing an inspection of the train and all the cars. I'm down there for like, I don't know, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the music on the small train starts playing. And it kind of shocked me for a minute, because I'm looking around like, you know, I've been down here for 15 or 20 minutes and nobody's down here. How did that thing, if it was on repeat, it would have started, you know, it probably would have been playing when I walked up there. And anyway, then I realized not only is it playing, it's playing the same CD that Brad Sundberg made, that was custom made with stuff that Michael wanted on it. And that CD was in there 13 years ago when that train got hauled out of there.
Wow.
And then I'm looking around like, you know, Michael's down here watching me.
Yeah, wow.
It was kind of a hair-raising moment for me. I gotta say that. It's actually very important that I share these stories. I mean, I think everybody that worked there that has any similar stories, it's important to Michael's legacy, because there's so many people out there that don't have an opinion one way or another, or have a negative opinion, but they're not judgmental enough where maybe they might actually sit down and listen to some of these stories and realize, hey, maybe they ought to give this guy a break, you know. So
and I know it's difficult because Michael was a private person and there's a lot about,
yeah,
privacy, but at the same time, when the vultures are coming out and spreading so much crap and hate,
right, yeah,
it's good to have some truth and some people to stand up and say, well, no, here's the truth. And it's
right.
good to hear. So I appreciate it. We appreciate it. So thank you. And thank you for my jacket. It's still my most prized possession.
I should go up there and get the dangerous jacket so we can.
I was hoping I'm like, I wonder if Al will put on the dangerous jacket.
You know, I put it on. It's a large. I think I was in junior high when I wore a large last, but I can actually wear it and show it off. You know, I just better not, go like this or try to zip it up. But,
have you got it there?
Huh?
Have you got it there?
Yeah. Well, hold on a second.
Yeah, go grab it.
Okay.
For everybody else that doesn't know, me and Al swapped jackets. I was looking for a bad tour jacket, and I had two of the dangerous tour jackets. And Al was looking for a dangerous jacket, and I was looking for a bad jacket. So we swapped. And I love this jacket so much.
Let me see if I can get the back here.
Love it. Yeah, the embroidery on the back is the best, isn't it?
Oh.
The artwork is beautiful. Mate, I didn't have a lot of questions for you really prepared. I just wanted to basically have a chat and hear what you wanted to talk about the humanitarian side and Neverland. And I think you've pretty much summed up what the MJ family know about Neverland. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with Neverland?
I mean, everything we did out there was so touching to read these letters from these kids and the inner city kids. I mean, we didn't get the touching letters from them, but you could tell it was
yeah.
I mean, a lot of these kids had never been out of their neighborhood. I mean, some of these kids lived in neighborhoods that were pretty rough to live in. And I actually rode up from LA. I was doing something in LA, and we had a Heal the World event coming up at the ranch. And I called Rick Fowler, who was the CEO of Heal the World at the time. And I said, hey, I'm doing some stuff in LA. I said, where's the buddy? He says, come down to the Heal the World office and you can ride with me and come back with us and get back. So, because I still had some stuff to do in LA. So I went up there I rode up on the bus with Rick Fowler and a bunch of these inner city kids. And I remember we got up there, when you get past Ventura, it's like you're out of the city, you can see the ocean. And then the closer you get, pretty soon you see, anyway, at one point off to the right, there's this huge, looked like, several thousand acre ranch, and they had cattle. And I heard these two girls behind me talking, and and then one girl goes, look, real cows.
Oh, wow.
They'd never seen real cows before, so it was a big experience just getting on the bus and driving up there. And then, of course, being at Michael Jackson's house and getting the party, do all that stuff. It was a big
mind.
It was a big deal for everybody that got to come up there. And I know, we've had several fan events, and now there's a little town there, Solvang. It's kind of it looks like a little Dutch village and a lot of antique shops. And every once in a while, Michael would go there. He'd just hop in one of the ranch vehicles and I'm going to Solvang. Wouldn't take any security with him or anything. He just going to Solvang. And I remember one time, I wasn't actually with him, but I mean, the story was he showed back up at the ranch with a van following him. And he told security that it's a family that he met in Solvang. And he invited him to come out and, spend a couple hours at the ranch. Well, it was a family, they were from somewhere in Asia. And I guess the guy broke his door handle. He was getting in his van and broke his door handle. He was so excited. He said, Michael Jackson. Yeah, I
can imagine.
So he said, they do have a camera, so take their camera. But, he said, call Big Al and tell him to get the steam train ready. And I'm going to, let him be around. So
Wow.
So every once in a while we'd have like a spur of the moment thing where he'd just, show up with somebody and say, let them in. So.
But thanks again for chatting. Finally, I get to chat to you.
All right.
And we'll catch up and chat again very soon. If there's anything else you want to talk about.
I just ordered, I ordered some more humanitarian books, and I ordered some of your new ones, and I'll be bringing them to, I'll bring them to LA in June so I can get you to sign them. I'm going to give them away as gifts. So.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice. I'm so glad with humanitarian. I mean, I'm proud of the new book. The new book was done before humanitarian. Actually, I did that when I was researching for the humanitarian book.
Yeah.
I researched everything and every date and every movement, and I had this massive document that was, 1,000 pages long. And then I took out all the humanitarian parts and made the book out of that.
Right.
But then in a recent interview I mentioned that when I researched, I had everything together, and then I took the humanitarian parts out. And so I started getting all these messages saying, where's the big book? Where's the big book? We want the big book. I'm like, okay, I better put some pictures in it and make it nice. And here you go. So it's a big book, but that's so nice of you. And thank you for your support. You've supported my book since day one.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of like me telling my stories. I think your book is fantastic and more people need to see it. So.
Yeah, well, it's out there. So we're doing a good job. Thanks again, Al. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Have fun at the movies.
See you in June.
All righty.